We are joined now by the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Howard Dean, for his first reaction to this verdict. Chairman, good to see you. Your reaction?
Thanks for having me on, Nora. I think it's a sad day. I'm not surprised. I think it's an indicator, once again, that we see an administration that's more interested in politics and discrediting its critic than it is in getting the job done. There's some parallels to the developing scandal now where you have senators and representatives calling prosecutors to influence cases, and you have cover-ups over what was going on in the Walter Reed scandal. This is an administration very much reminding me of Richard Nixon's administration, where the president himself has become, and others have become, more obsessed with their critics than they have with doing their job, and America is suffering.
I read a statement that you put out just a short time ago, and you said ultimately the buck stops with President Bush. While he failed to keep his promise to fire the leaker, he should pledge not to pardon Scooter Libby. Are you suggesting that the president come out publicly and say, I'm not going to pardon this guy?
Well, there's been a pattern in the past with those who were involved in the Iran-Contra scandal where Republican presidents have pardoned high-level people who have been convicted of violating American law. There's a particularly good reason for the president to think about pardoning Scooter Libby. It's a good way to shut him up. Now that Mr. Libby faces some jail time, what else was going on? We know there was a huge pattern of deception in terms of the reasons around which we went to war. What else is going on in the administration? One person I know knows that, who's now facing some jail time. So I think it would be a bad thing for the president to short-circuit any further investigation by giving a pardon at this point.
What do you make sort of politically of what the Democrats, and we noticed that a number of statements have come out not only from you but also from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, as well as the head of the Senate, Harry Reid, all saying that this speaks to a larger issue about the case for war that this administration made leading up to the Iraq War. And yet we are embroiled in this debate here in Washington about what the Democrats will do to limit the president's power when it comes to the war. When will we see some action?
Well, we need to get out of Iraq, and the American people voted essentially to get out of Iraq in the 2006 elections. The president seems to be determined not to pay any attention to what the American people say. I would remind the president the American people are our bosses, and we ought to probably pay attention to them once in a while. So the question is how to do it. There are some real constitutional limitations, not to mention the limitation of the Republicans in the Senate who seem to be resisting us at every turn. So our options are somewhat limited. We're determined to end the war in Iraq. That's what the people sent us to do in 2006. And it's going to be tough to do it in the face of a president who controls the military and foreign policy constitutionally to do that. But we are determined to do it, and we will find a way to do it.
On the Libby conviction out of 4 out of these 5 counts, what do you think it means now, and what will you call on Vice President Cheney to do?
Well, I would very much like to know all the other things that went on in Vice President Cheney's office. Who did fix the intelligence so that it wasn't shared with the American people, and so the president did not tell us the truth about why we were going to Iraq? How did that happen? Who did discredit CIA officials who warned the president that the intelligence they were getting on Iraq was biased and not accurate? How did that happen? Did that happen in the vice president's office? There's a lot more that we need to know here. And it would be nice if the president and the vice president would suddenly change colors and actually tell us the truth about these things. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith in that. I do have faith, however, in the American judicial system if it's allowed to work properly without political interference.
We do have what is sort of an interesting confluence of events that's happening here in Washington. There are these hearings that are going on, certainly on the failures at the Walter Reed Army Medical Hospital and the outpatient facility there. There are hearings going on today on Capitol Hill, questions being raised about this administration's competence, the military's competence, and at the same time then a conviction here in a courthouse from the vice president's most senior aide that he lied repeatedly, essentially to cover up that he had leaked the name of a CIA operative in order to discredit her husband, who had raised questions about the Iraq War. Contextualize that for me, what you think that means.
Here's the issue. The vice president, according to testimony in this trial, spent his time circling newspaper articles and circling documents focused on how they were going to get Ambassador Wilson and his wife, who were criticizing their position. Suppose the vice president had focused on what was going on at Walter Reed Hospital. We have the president of the United States who went to Iraq several times to buck up the troops, knowing that he was sending them over there without proper equipment, so that they would likely end up in Walter Reed, severely injured. And frankly, they didn't give a damn about what went on in Walter Reed, and it makes me sick, and I think it makes a lot of Americans sick. We need an administration who stops caring about politics and starts caring about the American people.
All right, Howard Dean, chairman of the Democratic National Committee, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.